We are back discussing the macro and the micro impact of the rate cap repeal. In other words, what is the problem? What is government trying to solve, and really so what? Before we went for break, Mr. Munga, we just had a very interesting conversation, and I just want to, play devil's advocate. So I can see that the government wants Bithe to get access to credit, which is perfectly fine. But really, on the ground, Bithe wants revenue earning opportunities. Because the credit could be there, but if I'm not earning revenue, then it doesn't really make sense. So how do you reconcile, yes, the credit is there and it's going to be pushed in your face all along, but then where are the revenue earning opportunities? And are they all dependent on this debt that's holding us back? And really what I'm trying to answer, George, everybody says the economy is stalled. Nothing is happening in the economy, we're getting worse and worse by the as the day goes. But I kind of feel like somebody just came up and decided it's because we don't have credit. Is that really the right way to look at it from an economic perspective?
I want to give you a scenario.
Yes.
One is that money, let me call it capital, is one of the factors of production.
Okay.
And therefore, if you have capital, then already if you are at point A, then you have now moved to point B. So access to credit is a positive.
So it's a positive. So it's better to have access to it than not to have access to it.
Access to credit is a positive.
Okay.
But by having access to credit does not solve the economic law that we've had. When you have access to credit, the second thing that as an economist you ask is, where do I invest this credit?
That's
because
a very
otherwise,
good question.
if you don't have an opportunity or somewhere to invest that money, then it might become a cost to you, because you might end up spending that money and not having
any
return on it. So government must is on the first step. Let me call it that way.
Okay, so they've opened up
of opening up
capital.
Credit, but now they must work towards how do we create opportunities so that this credit can flow to the private sector, and private sector cannot use it to earn a return on it, and from that government can now start collecting taxes.
Okay.
That is how it works.
You bring out a pertinent element there. Where do I invest then? So fine. For instance, if I go tomorrow and the bank say, Bithe, you're running a micro SME or an SME, you're eligible to 10 million at 15%. Fair enough. Where do I go deploy the capital, or what should I be thinking about so that I can be able to say, if I get the 10 million at 15%, I can see an opportunity where I can invest it and even double the return that I get, so that I pay the bank and I still have some after I've paid my workers? Or how should I think about it when you're deploying this capital, and what are the investment opportunities off the top of your head?
I'll look at it from within our borders in Kenya alone, then outside our borders. As I was telling you, government is one of the biggest driver in an economy. When government spends, then the private sector have opportunities to go and do business with government. For example, if governments will start building roads today, doing capital investments, and they use the local businessmen, then of course the locals have a way to deploy that capital.
But that's a hard conversation, George. You know why? Look at the roads that are allocated to Kenyan contractors. And I mean, I'm not being biased here, but you see a road that is given to a Kenyan contractor, you're like year 2 and you're like, really? Nothing has moved. Give the same road to a foreign contractor. You can say, so I can understand the government saying, okay, we need to build local content, but is it that the local content doesn't have the capacity or the wherewithal, or I don't know how to balance it, because in theory what you're saying makes sense, but qua ground
it is different. Let me say this. Locals have the capacity. The only thing they need is support from the government. And let me just digress a bit, if you allow me.
Yes,
if
please.
you look at the Chinese, let me refer to the Chinese contracts that we have around.
Yes.
You know how they work? One, they have very heavy government support back in their home country. You find that they have availability of credit. That is one. Very cheap credit. And then availability of the technology that they use. So there's a very heavy government backing that they come to the market with that already
so
in
the
place.
Government is a big brother for them.
A big brother for them. So even in our country, if we were deliberate that we want to support our local content, let me put it that way, it is possible to do that. If you look at, let me call it the Kibaki economics.
Okay, Kibaki
between
economics.
0 to 2012 thereabout, you find that so many SMEs came up at that time, and most of them became corporates. Why? Because there was an enabling environment in that space,
okay.
and that is what government should look at.
All right.
But let me look at the other perspective. Government is not the only opportunities provider.
Yes.
Any business, any serious business person or any serious business in the country should start looking at across our borders. You've seen the likes of KCB, you've seen the likes of Equity getting into markets that previously maybe you thought we could not get into. The likes of Southern Sudan, the likes of Ethiopia. In fact, Safaricom is going into Ethiopia soon. In fact, they're already on the process of doing business there. So for an SME in Kenya, you might start thinking of venturing out of the country. And most economies grow because of investments that their citizens do outside their borders. Okay. So that's the thinking that I think now as Kenyans or as people who do business in this country should start looking at the region at large, not only box ourselves into the Kenyan economy.
George, you just have to pardon me. Today I'm really putting you on the spot because what I want to take out, something as Mbithe. Back to the conversation, I've gotten 10 million. Credit. The bank has decided, now we can price your risk. Before we could not price your risk. So here's 10 million, 15%, 18%, whatever it is. What will I go do in Uganda? What can I do in Rwanda? What can I do in South Sudan? What can I do in Ethiopia? In other words, I'm sure you have clients today. And it's one thing to talk about the macro outlook, but on the ground, George, what can I do? Where can I invest? What should I be looking at? What should I mean, I don't want you to tell me go buy a truck and sell oranges and put it on the road, but help me zone in on some ways that I should think to tap into this opportunity so that I'm not here 5 years from today saying my financial status has not changed yet. There was an enabler by the government with regards to the rate cap repeal, but I didn't take advantage of it. How do I take advantage of it?
I'll go back to, and in this scenario I want to refer to SMEs, yes, not the corporates per se, because the rates repeal will benefit SMEs more than corporates. Corporates, the risks are very easy to grade. They're very easily graded, but the SMEs, the risk factor that sometimes financial institutions might not be able to grade properly because there are symmetries in the market that we had after the capping of interest rates. Most SMEs have heavy opportunities, and one, I would call it piggybacking.
Piggyback,
I hope that is correct. On the corporates, I was giving you an example of Safaricom. Yes. Safaricom supports quite a number of SMEs in the country. The guys who do construction for their equipment, the guys who do
fiber.
Supplies. Yes, exactly. If I'm an SME in that space, and already I know that Safaricom is going into ET, that is Ethiopia. Safaricom is going into Uganda, Tanzania. Then I'd want to look at the print that this portend to me as a supplier of Safaricom in those markets. If I want to look at KCB is now in the region, so to speak.
Yes,
and I'm sure there are SMEs that do business with Kenya Commercial Bank. If I had credit and I'm a trader with KCB, I would want to look at the print that I can rope in from this other markets that they have.
So that you'd want to follow their trade routes, for instance, if it's KCB, what are they funding and see. So being supplementary, I like what you brought out, a very critical, I mean a very pertinent strategy. Find out what the corporates are doing, the large corporates, and find a way to align yourself, whether in goods or services, to this corporate. Because you've already given us two ideas of construction. Then there's fiber, if Safaricom is extending its operations. Then there's also following trade channels and finding out if the banks set up in new places, what else do they need?
Exactly.
Okay.
Something I wanted to mention to you. Our economy grew between 2002 and 2013. It was basically driven by what we call consumerism. That is to say that the common citizenry had quite good disposable income, and therefore the purchasing power increased, and that is what gave us the high growth in the real estate sector. Once the common populace have access to credit, you'll find that the purchasing power increases.
Okay.
And once the purchasing power increases, they would want to start investing or buying what we call valuables in the lifestyle, and that is an opportunity there that anybody doing business in the country would want to look at. So after the repeal of this Finance Act, I would expect the real estate again to start coming up from the lull that has impacted that market space.
All right, that's interesting. So real estate is another investment opportunity. Exactly. Is there any other investment opportunity that we might have failed to mention in the conversation?
Maybe just to mention fast-moving consumer goods is another area that I think would start experiencing quite good activity as we go into next year. Okay. So to me, I would want to borrow from Eliud Kipchoge.
Yes,
these are unlimited. There's always an opportunity if you look closely.
If you look, exactly. Just keep jogging, don't stop.
Exactly, okay. Jogging. That is it.
Keep jogging, keep jogging. So George, keep jogging. Thank you so much, George, for your time. George is very optimistic with regards to the rate cap repeal. He sees opportunities in the real estate sector, in construction sector, as well as in trade. He's telling us, do this if you're an SME. Access to credit is there, but you need to be aligned to corporate strategies, if nothing else, within the region, and see how you can position yourself. And he also expects that we'll see trends improving in the real estate sector, as well as in the fast-moving consumer goods sector as well. So the question is, will you position yourself? And if you must take that credit, do you have a plan on how to deploy it and ensure that you get a return over and above the cost of debt? Thank you for joining us once again, and as always, we run Monday to Friday, 2:30. That is Metropole TV. Like us on our page, engage with us, and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.